Welcome, Annie Collins here for the Rabbit Hole Designs. Today I'm creating this fun Christmas card. Let's go over the products I used to create this card. The first is our stamp set called Clarence Believes. This is TRH172. It's an adorable set here with Clarence sitting in his chair waiting for Santa to come. He's has his little lamp, some cookies for Santa, some milk, and he fell asleep, so he's even drooling, which is adorable. Reminds me of my kids when they were little. They would say they would wait up for Santa, but they never did make it. I'm gonna use some pattern paper here from the Rabbit Hole Designs. It's got this diagonal stripe on the bottom and presents in the top. I'll use a diagonal stripe. I'm gonna be using our new mid-century modern stencil, and this is a 4-layer stencil. It has this one here that has like this asterisk and then several different dots. I'm just gonna use 2 parts of this stencil today. I'm going to use a little asterisk looking part and one of the dots. At a later time I'll use all 4 layers for a card. To go with this, I will be using with our stencil I'll be using Distress Oxide and Salvaged Patina, and of course Festive Berries. I'll be using this diagonal stripe, and these 2 colors match perfectly with this pattern paper. We'll be using Accent Ultra Smooth cardstock. This is 80 pounds. We're going to use that for our background. It's great for ink blending. It's also what I use for my Copic coloring. And that's what I use to stamp and color little Clarence here. I have some layering cardstock in red, and that's 65 pounds. So and then I have my card base, which is 110 pounds weight. We'll also be bringing in some VersaFine in Onyx Black for our sentiment. So let's get started. First, I'm going to start with the asterisk looking part of our stencil. And the stencils have etched not only the name, but also has etched this part that says top, that you have to make sure is always facing upwards or on the top, and that's way how you know your design will meet up correctly. I'm going to start with Salvaged Patina, and we're going to do all of these little asterisks with the Salvaged Patina. I'm going to even do all those ones that are just off the cardstock a bit. Just want to make sure everything's all in there. And now this is part of the new Christmas release. We had a Christmas in July release. So this is all the new products from that release. There's some other wonderful products that you can find on the website, on the shop, and I'll have the shop listed in the link description. I'll have the shop's link listed in the description box below. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the little circles here, and now we're going to use the Festive Berries for this. And I'm just lining it up, and as you can see, the red berries, or the red circles will match up perfectly with the little asterisks. Now if I keep putting the layers, they fill in all the little connecting lines and then some in between. I just wanted to keep it a little more simple because we're using the pattern paper on the bottom, so I didn't want a whole lot of designs. Alright, so now we're done with both of our stencils. We'll set that aside, and then I'll quickly wipe down my craft mat so that we don't get ink all over the place. And I'm going to bring in my trimmer really quickly so I can trim off the bottom portion of this pattern paper. And I'm leaving it the width that it is. I'm just going to cut it to match our card here. So what I'm trying to create with the pattern paper with the diagonal stripe is basically a little rug for Clarence to be sitting on. So once I have that, I will adhere that to our our stenciled background. And I was going to trim this down at first, my stencil background, but I decided to leave it in whole. It just made it a lot easier and faster to create this card. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Barely Art glue to adhere my panel onto my layering cardstock. and this is about a quarter of an inch smaller. So this panel is 4 by 5.5, and our layering cardstock is 5. It's 4 1/4 by 5.5. We are creating an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So I have that layering cardstock be the same size as our card base. Alright, so now that we have that all adhered, I'm going to place Clarence on the card, and I have them raised up using some foam tabs. So I'm just removing the backing of our foam tabs on here so that we can adhere Clarence to our card front. Once I have all these, I can get this. I can place Clarence down, and there he is, waiting for Santa. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. I'm going to use this little piece of scrap paper that's left over from when I stamped in Clarence. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this on that little corner, and then I'll trim it down. And our sentiment reads, "May you never stop believing." So I'm going to grab my tiny trimmer here, and I'm going to trim this down. Give it a quick trim. Once we have that all trimmed down, I will use some foam adhesive to adhere this to our card. I slanted one of our ends here, and I'm going to place it right here on the top left. I think I'm going to bring in a little bit of this diagonal paper since I have some, and I'm going to create another little strip with it, also putting a little diagonal cut on the end, and that one I will adhere directly to our card front, and then I will then adhere our sentiment using some foam tape, just trimming it down really quickly, placing it on the back of our sentiment, and then that will go right on top of that diagonal striped paper. Trying to use my grid mat here as to line everything up. I gently just adhere the edge so I can straighten anything up. And now I'm going to bring in some glitter enamel dots in red and in like an aqua color. I'm going to place 2 towards the bottom right, and then 3 around the sentiment. So I'm going to place 1 above it and then 2 below it. And now I've had these in my stash for a little bit, so they have some stick, but not a lot. So I'm going to reinforce that with a little bit of barely arc glue, especially since I'm sticking it on top of some of the wet ink. So our card is not complete. So we used the mid-century modern 4-layer stencil and Clarence Believes stamp set, along with some distressed oxides in Salvaged Patina and Festive berries. Again, I'll have everything listed in the description box below for you. Thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration today.